Hello, everyone. My name is Rahul. I'm part of the technical account management team based out of Dubai, VMware in UAE. Today, in this session, we'll be talking about vRealized operations, vROPs, vRealized log insight, VRLI, and vRealized network insight, VRNI. How do all these three solutions together deliver 360-degree visibility into the infrastructure, and what is its significance? So, as a brief agenda, we will be talking about the challenges with the siloed monitoring approach. Why is it challenging? We will talk about the individual solutions, vROPs, VRLI, and VRNI, and how they are better together when integrated, and followed by a brief summary of the content. To begin with, I would like to start with this famous quote by Peter Drucker, which says, "When you can't measure something, you cannot manage," which in the context of this session, what I'm trying to say essentially is when you have a large infrastructure, a technology infrastructure, where we don't have the right measuring solutions, the right measuring points, we just can't manage this infrastructure and we just can't scale this infrastructure. Now, we'll see why. What is different with the modern infrastructure today? We see the infrastructure growing beyond data centers, right? Applications are the key business drivers. And as in how the application footprint grows, we see that the data center footprint is growing beyond private cloud, public cloud, edges. So the infrastructure is pretty much scaling, right? And then we can see diversified cloud stacks. It could be from various vendors based on the choice of the customer. And we see that every entity requires a different kind of visibility altogether. And then we see the applications are more and more demanding in terms of resources and how do we provision them on demand to such applications. And then, of course, the shorter development or the ready to market cycles with which organizations are looking at, which actually brings in which is actually intended to bring in a competitive edge, right? So these are some of those key driving factors where when we come into the specific subject of monitoring, how should that be different from the conventional model? We will start off with this very famous solution or tool from VMware, which is the vRealized operations. The core functionality of the vRealized operations, it's a screenshot of the solution itself, the landing page, is to provide deep visibility into the performance and capacity for the infrastructure purely from an infrastructure perspective, right? And then helps delivering various capabilities like custom content, automated workflows, and so on and so forth. So to look into the functionality of vRealized operations, it delivers analytics. It's the analytics is the key, right? And using the analytics, it provides deep insight into performance and capacity. So performance could be around compute or storage for any kind of workloads, physical, virtual, and even the containerized workloads. Capacity, understanding the trend analysis, forecast, and how capacity can be optimized. It provides infrastructure optimization guidance with automated remediation, custom content like dashboards, views, reports, and alerts, application and OS monitoring, and costing for the private cloud and the hybrid cloud. What essentially vRealized operations cannot do is to provide log analytics. Now, as you all know, logs are a key integral part of any infrastructure, which helps in providing troubleshooting guidance, getting to know what exactly is happening within the infrastructure, knowing the events. Near real-time logs from various sources, right? It's not just the servers or the compute. It could be from the network, or it could be from any other hardware which is associated, virtual machines, physical machines, and so on. Network and security visibility is, again, a very key integral part of any solution which has to be in place, and identify the gaps to implement the right policies for security, right? So when we look into a holistic approach, these are some of the things which are not possible with the solution. Now, going to vRealized Log Insight. Now, this has been there with VMware for quite some time, helps with end-to-end unified log management, searching, filtering, indexing, visualization of logs, and then providing an interactive analytics, as you can see on the right side, and dashboards, whereby the log analysis becomes a much more simplified method. And definitely, it's used by a lot of organizations for security and compliance audit use cases, where we need to track the events which are happening in the infrastructure. Extended support with a lot of third-party content packs and native VMware content packs, and of course, the dashboards and the interactive GUI, as you can say, as I said. And what it can't do, essentially, like we saw on vROPs, what it does is monitoring the performance and capacity, right, within an analytical approach, network and security, log analytics and alerting, application-centric grouping and visualization, right? So these are some of the things which Log Insight, since it's pretty much focused on log analytics, is something what it does not deliver. Coming to vRLI's Network Insight, which is predominantly focusing on networking and security visibility, provides the end-to-end network and flow analytics, helps in performing security planning, whether understanding whether our security or our microsegmentation strategy, which we have followed with software-defined networking, is right or wrong, and helps us optimize that. Looking at complete network and security from an application perspective by grouping workloads into logical application groups and performing network and security analysis of the same. Network troubleshooting, right? It could be around performance or it could be around network packet drops across virtual and physical networks. It literally bridges the gap between the two entities and workloads like not just virtual and physical, but also containerized workloads. And then, of course, the emerging technologies like SD-WAN infrastructure and all the way to public clouds. Essentially, what it can't do when we look into a holistic approach is monitoring infrastructure, right? Like we saw what vRLI's operations could do, and automated infrastructure optimization and remediation. So pretty much does not offer any automation, which is something which we have to rely on the other tools to perform or do it manually. SDDC management of the whole stack, like for example, we have solutions like private cloud automation with VRA or site recovery manager or VMware Cloud Foundation, monitoring these elements. And then, of course, log and analytics, right? So we definitely get the alerts over here, but then are we applying any analytics on those logs or alerts for both physical and virtual infrastructure? That is not something which we will be able to do with Network Insight. This is where the key messaging which I want to bring in here is to make the best out of the three solutions, vROPs, VRLI, and VRNI, by integrating between each other, looking at it as not as individual products, one for monitoring the infrastructure, one for networking and security, one for log analytics. No, integrating it all together, because the out-of-box integration is available as of today, and then having a unified monitoring or a visibility approach. So we'll see how. Starting off with the integration between vRLI's operations and Log Insight, this has been around for quite some time. It is just the way we effectively make use of it. So there are two ways in which we can do, as you can see in the steps, which is one is integrating, configuring the vRLI's Log Insight adapter on vROPs. The second step is configuring the vROPs manager on VRLI. Once that is done, the capabilities what we get is troubleshooting with logs dashboard, right? Launch vRLI's Log Insight launch in context to vRLI's Log Insight from vRLI's operations, right? So any objects, a data center or a vCenter or a virtual machine. Simplifies troubleshooting by real-time log events because Log Insight captures real-time events. vRLI's operations does analytics on top of it for critical alerts which are generated. And VRLI generated alerts can also be forwarded to vROPs. So vROPs can be treated as like a single unified console for getting the Log Insight generated alerts, and for all the alerts which are generated on vROPs, how do we get to those specific events on Log Insight? So we'll see how, right? So this is one of the dashboards which is achieved through this integration, where on vRLI's operations, we can go into the home page, go to troubleshoot, and you'll get this new option, which is called as using logs, and which launches Log Insight right away from vRLI's operations, rather than having to switch between the two windows. So let's say if you hit a critical alert on vRLI's operations, and that's a specific object, you want to understand what really happened in real time with that object in context of time over a certain period of time. We can launch that object or search for that object on Log Insight in the interactive analytics, as you can see here, and then understand the events and then making troubleshooting much more easier. Right. Similarly, the alerts which are generated from Log Insight can be forwarded onto vRLI's operations. It can be configured to be sent to vRLI's operations. And this is pretty much what a lot of customers do, is to have the Log Insight alerts also coming into vRLI's operations, right? So any search queries, filtered search, which we do in the interactive analytics, can be converted into an alert on log inside based on certain conditions, and that can be forwarded into vRealize operations. So that's the beauty of the integration. Now looking at the integration between vRealize network inside, VRNI, and vRealize log inside, VRLI. So here, what we pretty much do is add vRealize log inside as a data source into vRealize network inside. So once that is added as a data source, on vRealize log inside, we come there and there is a webhook which is generated, because that's how the communication happens. We copy the webhook from network inside and then paste it on log inside, and that's how the integration happens, right? Now, why do we do this integration between VRNI and VRLI? As you're all aware, the NSX, the SDN component, the NSXT, is a very crucial component, because it literally backs the networking. Now, whenever there is an alert that happens on NSX, which gets into VRNI, there is a small delay, right? So there is a small latency, I would say. It may not be near real time. With the latest release of Network Insight, they have brought it down, right, from, let's say, 10 minutes or above to 5 minutes or below. But even then, to make it more real time, the only the solution that captures real-time alerts is log inside, VRLI. If VRLI is able to capture those alerts coming in from, or events coming in from NSX, it can straight away push it to VRNI, network inside, and then that's how we can make use of the real-time alerts, right? So this is one of the big asks from a lot of customers. And finally, we will talk about the integration between vRealize operations with vRealize network inside, vROPs with VRNI. So here, there is only one configuration that we do, which is on vRealize operations. There is an inbuilt adapter within vRealize operations available for network inside, which we just need to configure with the IP address or FQDN of the VRNI instance, provide the credentials, and we are good to go, right? So what do we achieve out of this integration, right? Network-aware troubleshooting in vRealize operations. So what does that mean? Now, we know that in vRealize network inside, right, one of the most beautiful features is the application groups. So we create application groups based on it could be based on flows, or it could be manually defined, or it could be using CMDB tools like ServiceNow. So there are various methods in which we can create application groups. Once those groups are created, right, you can natively view those applications on vRealize operations as a native object within here. And all the alerts which are generated from network inside, which could be around objects like virtual machine or NSXV or NSXT or vSphere host or vSphere cluster applications, all those alerts can be pushed into vRealize operations. And we can view all those alerts within here, which gets generated within the object, which is called as VRNI or VRNI related object. So that is one of the things where we don't have to shuffle between two different windows to monitor those alerts, right? And as you can see, for any object on vRealize operations, as you can see on the screenshot, once we are done with the troubleshooting of that object, right? So it could be a ESXi host, or it could be a virtual machine, or it could be a virtual center. So any of those objects which we search and we troubleshoot, we will be doing it predominantly from a compute or storage perspective, more from an infrastructure perspective. And once we are done, and if you want to have a look into the networking or security side of the object, under actions, you will get this option which says open the component in vRealize network inside. So this means launch in context of that object into network inside, right? So that's a feature. So from here, it right away takes us into the network inside window, logs into the network inside window, and helps us view that object more from a network and security perspective, how the flows are, who are the peers, how the communication is happening, are there any packet drops over there, are there any network or security alerts generated on that object, so on and so forth. And the most key element, like I was mentioning in the beginning, is the application. The screenshot, what you see here is about the application groups. So all these are the application groups which are created on network inside. And then we analyze this application from a network and security perspective. Now, when we want to look into that application, because what does that application comprise? It comprises of maybe 2 or more virtual machines. And we want to clearly monitor or have a visibility of that application from an infrastructure perspective, we can right away go into vRealize operations and search for that application group as it is created on Network Insight within vRealize operations, right? And then it will give us the whole lot of view of that particular application and its subcomponents. And then we have the troubleshooting workbench, as what it is called, which is available for any object on Network Insight. We can click on the troubleshooting workbench and we can increase the scope of the troubleshooting workbench and then understand any anomalies or any change events or anything which has gone wrong with that particular object or its subcomponents on vRealize operations. Once we are pretty sure that everything is fine from the infrastructure perspective, now I want to come back into Network Insight to view it more from a network and security perspective. Like I said in the previous slide, we can launch in context of that object from vROPs into Network Insight, right? So that's the benefit. Now, in summary, what I was trying to say with the help of these three solutions, vRealize operations, vRealize Log Insight, and vRealize Network Insight, by integrating them is the holistic visibility, right? And this is how we overcome the siloed troubleshooting approach and having a unified 360-degree view, right? It could be any kind of workloads, right? It could be like the physical servers or the virtual machines or containerized workloads. One is having a visibility into capacity and performance, compute, storage, physical, and then logs become the integral part. Whenever it comes to troubleshooting, we need to know what has been the series of events, where and all have we've seen failures, right? So the unstructured data which comes in from multiple sources, right? It is not just from one object. It could be from the guest operating system. It could be from the ESXi host. It could be from the vCenter, from the various sources to be aggregated, analyzed, and presented in a user-friendly fashion with interactive dashboards. That's what Log Insight does. And then following network and security analytics, which is bridging the gap between physical and virtual world, both from a network troubleshooting and visibility and security analysis perspective, right? And all of these together, right? All for physical machines, virtual machines, containers, hybrid cloud environments, right? And then, as you saw, the integration, and these are all those capabilities what we look for in this unified approach, rather than having to look into various tools or various solutions. Make use of the out-of-the-box integration between the three: vROPs, VRLI, and VRNI. As you saw, it's pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward, and then have a holistic view into the infrastructure, providing us with 360-degree visibility, right? So with that, I would like to conclude the topic here. Thank you so much. Thanks for listening.